The Sparkill Creek is one of thousands of streams which contribute water to the Hudson River as it journeys from the Adirondack Mountains to the sea. All those streams are called tributaries, and the Sparkill is a good example of how this works. Our creek is about 8 miles long from its start up on Clausland Mountain to its mouth at the end of the Piermont Marsh. Like most creeks, it doesn't have one beginning, it has many. Let's head into the woods and find one. As you walk down Clausland Mountain, you start to see damp channels forming all over the ground. Many are right next to one another. As you follow them, you start to see puddles and then running water, as one joins another and another. The creek they form becomes larger and larger. Scientists call all those creeks, which eventually join together, a watershed. At the bottom of the mountain, these streams have all come together to form the Sparkill Creek. The creek comes out of the woods and crosses 303 right by Mountain Avenue. It runs along 303 past Orangeburg Road and then crosses over 303 after a few blocks. Next, it crosses back over 303 and goes down into Tappan right behind the library. It loops down behind the DeWint House and crosses 303 one last time right by the New Jersey border, joining with more creeks on its way. It crosses Oak Tree Road a second time and goes through the woods for a while, coming out in Sparkill along Ferdinand Avenue. This little pond and waterfall were once part of an old mill, one of several which dotted the little creek in olden times. This area of the creek was once a busy harbor, where farmers loaded their crops on small sailing boats, which took them to hungry New York City. The little creek gets its name from the spars, which were a part of the masts of those old boats. You could see the spars as they wound their way through the channels in the marsh on their way to this harbor. At the foot of Ferdinand Avenue, the creek heads out into the Piermont Marsh, where it brings much-needed fresh water to the plants and animals that live there. And finally, right here, at the edge of the Piermont Marsh, our little creek empties into the mighty Hudson River. But water is not the only thing the creek brings to the river. Anything that floats on our streets will eventually end up in the Sparkill Creek. From there, it makes its way to the Hudson, and eventually to the sea beyond. Can you think of some examples of the many types of pollution the creek brings into the Hudson as it moves through our community?